Tatooine Skiff appeared in the Jabba the Hutt sequence of Return of the Jedi, along with Jabba's sail barge. During this sequence, we see Luke Skywalker as he is forced to walk the plank over the Sarlacc pit. We also see him fight Boba Fett. It's a very exciting part of the film that has people jumping between skiffs, falling off of them, and even dangling from them. You'd think it would be the perfect subject for a toy, but take a look at this Kenner commercial from the time.
The Force is back. The rebels won't tire till they see the last of the Empire, and Kenner's there with Star Wars Return of the Jedi collection.
I'm gonna feed you to Sarlacc pit, Skywalker.
That's right. Luke and Jabba's henchmen are sailing in on what appears to be a chunk of wood.
Tear the plank, weakway.
More wood! I always liked these old commercials because they showed kids being creative with their play, but what it really meant was that Kenner didn't have a skiff vehicle for sale at the time. What they did have was this, the Desert Sail Skiff, sometimes called the one-man sail skiff. It was part of Kenner's line of mini-rigs, small, inexpensive vehicles that didn't actually appear in the Star Wars films. It also looked kind of like a skiff and Jabba's sail barge had a baby. But it did have a plank, so you could recreate the scene from the movie in a pinch. Still, it left something to be desired. It wasn't until 1985 that Kenner finally released its Tatooine Skiff vehicle as part of its Power of the Force line. This was after the main line of Return of the Jedi toys had ended, and came right at the tail end of the popularity of Star Wars. This meant that relatively few of them were sold. I know I never saw one as a kid, and I probably didn't even know it existed. It also makes it one of the most expensive vehicles in the Kenner Star Wars line. As of mid-2015, you'd be lucky to get one of these complete in a nice condition box for less than $500, and they sometimes go for a lot more. The box alone can cost hundreds. Let's take a look at some of its features from the back of the box. Pretend to steer Tatooine Skiff by moving rear rudder lever. Control lever activates skiff landing pods. Throw Boba Fett over vehicle side by pushing action lever. Side rails break away to simulate battle damage. Activate plank. Luke Skywalker should be fed to Sarlacc monster. Wait, what? Luke Skywalker should be fed to Sarlacc monster? That's a little odd. Who wrote this? Jabba himself? Anyway, moving right along. Keep accessories in center storage area. While this wasn't in the film version of the skiff, it's kind of a nice touch because these accessories can be easy to lose. Now, if you look at the toy itself, you'll see that it's remarkably close to what we saw in the film, if slightly undersized. For a kid's toy, it's got quite a few delicate pieces, which just makes finding a complete and unbroken one even harder. A single leg can go for $30 or more, so if you're buying one of these, make sure it has all the parts. As we saw on the back of the box, it's got several play features that mimic what we saw in the film, starting with the Gangplank. You pull one of these levers to extend and retract it. I don't think we need to make Luke walk the plank again, do you? Oh, all right. Have it your way, Jabba. Happy now? This lever makes a section of the floor pop up so you can simulate someone being knocked off the skiff, and the sides also fold down. Of course, some figures may have footholds that are a little bit too tight for them to actually fall off. Move these levers in the back to move rudders on either side so you can pretend to steer the skiff. This other lever makes the landing gear, or landing pods as they call them, retract. This whole toy is very cleverly designed, although it's definitely not the most durable vehicle in the line. Kenner originally intended to re-release a version of the skiff in their line of toys for the Droids cartoon, as evidenced by this catalog page and this mock-up of the box art. But the Droids line ended up getting the axe before many of the main characters were even made, and needless to say, the Droids skiff never saw the light of day. Hasbro released an updated version of this toy in 1999, using the same molds as the vintage version, and it was released again 10 years later in 2009 as a Target exclusive, and that time they included a Sarlacc pit. The vintage and modern versions of the toys are very similar, but there are some differences. From left to right, here are the vintage Kenner version, the 1999 Hasbro version, and the 2009 Hasbro version. They all have different colors of plastic, and I should note that there's also a variant of the 1999 version that is quite green. The vintage version has no paint on it at all, although it does come with a few stickers that I haven't applied. The 1999 version has some more realistic paint, and the 2009 version really looks quite nice with a lot of realistic wear. They all have the same action features, like the extending gangplanks, but they added some extra foot pegs to the modern versions. The vintage version is dated 1984 and was made in Mexico, while both of the newer versions are dated 1999 and were made in China. One final difference can be seen in the back. The vintage version is squared off, while the newer one on the right has a rounded section. While these differences are good to know if you need to tell the difference between the vintage version and the re-releases, I don't really think they make the vintage version superior in any way. While the vintage skiff is prized by collectors for its rarity, and the box is certainly nice, unless you're a hardcore vintage Star Wars collector, you might be better off just going for one of the modern versions. The paint will be more realistic, and it'll cost you just a tiny fraction of what the vintage version would. But whether you choose the vintage or the modern version, it's a great toy that's both fun to play with and looks good on display, and I highly recommend it.